Hello everyone and welcome to Dr. Wasif Academy. This is the channel where you can find authentic, high quality and updated teaching content designed to help you succeed in your studies. Today we are diving into a fundamental topic in biology, that is photosynthesis and plant nutrition. This is a vital chapter, and by the end of this chapter you will have a clear understanding of five key areas. Number one is the process of photosynthesis. Number two is research history of photosynthesis discovery. Number three is about leaf structure and its adaptation. Number four will be about limiting factors, that what's which factors speed up or slow down the process of photosynthesis. And number five is about essential minerals, that how plants take up essential nutrients from the soil for their growth and survival. So my dear students, stick around until the very end because we will also practice exam style questions at the end of this chapter. Okay, and then you can test your knowledge and make sure you are ready for your assessments. So let's get started. Now you might think of food as something only animals need to eat. But just like us, plants require complex organic molecules to survive. Think of these molecules as both the building blocks for their bodies and the fuel for their energy. There are three main reasons why plant nutrition is so important. Number one is respiration. You will see this word often in your syllabus, that plants take the glucose which they make and oxidize it. Oxidization means they break it down to release ATP. And ATP, as you have learned it earlier, that ATP is the energy currency of the cell. And without this currency, the plant cannot perform their functions like active transport or division of their cells to grow further. Number two is biomass production. If a plant wants to get bigger, it needs physical materials. Nutrition provides the carbon skeletons, which are the raw materials, which are required to build new leaves, stronger stems, and deeper roots. This is how a tiny seed eventually becomes a massive tree. And finally, plants are not static, okay? They are living machines. They constantly need to make new proteins and lipids to repair damaged tissues and replace old cells which have worn out. So, without proper nutrition, the plant simply cannot maintain itself. Now, let's look at a very important classification, means heterotrophs versus autotrophs. Definitely, you have already studied this difference, but here is a just brief definition. Animals like us are heterotrophs. We have to eat or ingest. What we ingest? We ingest organic matter to get our energy. But plants, those are different. They are autotrophs. The word auto means self and troph relates to feeding. So plants are self-feeders. They do not eat. Instead, they synthesize their own complex organic molecules like glucose, and they do this by taking simple inorganic raw materials, specifically carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil, and locking them together using light energy. Here I want to give you a pro tip for your exams. In exams, always remember keywords are king. So if an examiner asks why an organism needs food, do not just say for energy. That is too simple. The stronger and mark winning answer is to release energy through respiration. Also, you should make sure that you can recite this definition, that autotrophic nutrition is the process of making organic substances from inorganic ones. If you memorize that phrase, it's a frequent exam favorite. Before we look at the chemistry of photosynthesis, I want you to realize just how massive this process is. Every single oxygen atom you are breathing into your lungs right now was once part of a water molecule. It was liberated or set free through the process of photosynthesis. So without plants doing the work of doing the job of photosynthesis, we would not have air to breathe. And secondly, it is not just air, it is energy. When we burn wood for a fire, gasoline in a car, or even when our own bodies burn the food we ate for lunch or dinner, all of that energy was originally captured from sunlight by a plant. Directly or indirectly, photosynthesis is the battery that powers the entire planet. To give you an idea of the scale, every single day, the energy reaching Earth from the sun is equal to about 1 million atomic bombs. That is a staggering amount of power. Photosynthesis captures only about 1% of that energy, but that tiny 1% is enough to drive almost all life on Earth. It is truly the most important biological process in the world. Now that we have understood why photosynthesis is important for us, let's look at how it actually works. By definition, photosynthesis is a metabolic process. This simply means it is a chemical reaction within a living organism. In this case, plants are transferring light energy into chemical energy, which is then stored in the bonds of glucose molecules. To run this factory, the plant needs three core raw materials. Number one is light energy. This is captured from sunlight by special pigments. Okay, I think you should know about which are those special pigments. If you know the answer, which are those special pigments, respond in comment section. Secondly, about carbon dioxide. This gas diffuses only into the leaf from the air through tiny pores called stomata. This is where the plant gets its carbon. And number three is water. Water is absorbed from the soil by the roots and travels up the xylem to reach the leaves. So, where does this all happen? It happens in the chloroplast. These are specialized organelles. Think of them like the machinery inside the plant cell. Inside these chloroplasts, you will find chlorophyll. This is the green pigment which acts like a solar panel to trap the light. You should remember the chloroplast is the place, but the chlorophyll is the tool. I want to pause here for a very important exam viewpoint. In your exam, you will almost certainly be asked to define photosynthesis. Many students make the mistake of just listing the ingredients, like saying it's when a plant uses water and gas. That is not enough for getting full marks. To get that top grade, you must state that it is a process that uses light energy to convert simple inorganic molecules, which are carbon dioxide and water, into complex organic molecules like glucose. Another trap to avoid is confusing the chloroplast with chlorophyll. Think of it this way: the chloroplast is the organelle. Okay, chloroplast is the organelle, the actual physical room or factory where the work happens. Okay, this is a chloroplast. But what is the chlorophyll? Chlorophyll is the pigment. That is the question which I asked you in the start of this slide. That what is the special pigment? Okay, here is the answer. Chlorophyll is the pigment. That is a green paint or solar panel inside that room which actually traps the light. So in your exam, if you are asked for the site of photosynthesis, you should write that is chloroplast. But if they ask what absorbs the light, then write chlorophyll. Do not mix them up. Okay, remember this trap. uh, in this picture, okay, I know I shall give you just a brief about this picture. This is a sleek educational diagram. Okay, it features a large stylized cross section of a green leaf showing internal cells containing a green oval chloroplast. Okay, and arrows clearly show what is incoming and what is going out. For example, incoming is sunlight, which is here is sunlight. Okay, and that is hitting the leaf, and carbon dioxide. Okay, is also coming here. Okay, that is also incoming, entering stomata, and water, that is in below arrow. This is entering from the bottom, that is implying xylem. But what is outgoing? Outgoing is glucose and oxygen. Okay, these two are outputs of this mechanism. So a magnified section focuses on a cell and a single chloroplast to emphasize the location. So below this diagram here, you can see below this diagram, you can see the word equation that is presented clearly on this diagram. That is carbon dioxide in the when it reacts with water in the presence of sunlight, it gives sugar, that is glucose, and it releases oxygen. So if you look at a leaf, it might seem simple, but it is actually an evolutionary masterpiece. It is perfectly designed to balance three things, that is absorbing light, number one, number two is exchanging gases, and number three is transporting water. We are going to look at this on two levels. First of all, let's look at the gross adaptations, which just means the features we can see with the naked eye. Okay, notice how most leaves have a broad lamina. This is the broad lamina. Okay, it is not just for show. A large surface area maximizes the leaf's exposure to sunlight. The more surface there is, the more photons or light particles the plant can capture. Also notice how thin a leaf is. This is brilliant design. A thin leaf creates a very short diffusion pathway. This means gases like carbon dioxide do not have to travel far to reach the cells, and light can penetrate easily through every single layer. Finally, look at the midrib. Okay, uh, here is the midrib, and that here are the veins. So you look at the midrib and the veins. These serve a double purpose. First, they are the leaf's transport system, bringing in water and minerals, which carrying away the glucose from the leaf that it has made. Secondly, they act like a skeleton. They are rigid and tough, holding the leaf flat and facing the sun, so it can soak up as much energy as possible. Now let's peel back the surface and look inside the leaf with a microscope. The interior of a leaf is organized into very specific layers, each with a specialized job. First, right under the top skin, we have the palisade mesophyll. Okay, in this diagram, this is the palisade mesophyll. These cells, these are palisade mesophylls. Okay, these cells are shaped like tall columns and are tightly packed together. But why is this packed? Because they are the leaf's main energy catchers. They contain the highest concentration of chloroplast to soak up as much sunlight as possible before the light fades away. Below this palisade mesophyll is spongy mesophyll. Okay, you can see it here. This is the spongy mesophyll. Unlike the palisade cells, these are irregularly shaped, as you can see in this diagram. Okay, these are irregularly shaped and fit together loosely. This creates a spongy texture with large interconnected air spaces. This design is brilliant for gas exchange. It provides a massive internal surface area so carbon dioxide can zip quickly to the cells that need it. Finally, let's look at the protective layers. The epidermis. Okay, where is epidermis? Locate it here. This is the epidermis. That is the cover. So epidermis is just like the plant's skin. It is made of transparent cells with no chloroplast, which acts like a window, letting light pass straight through the to the cells. Okay, which says palisade mesophyll cells. So covering this is the waxy cuticle. This is the waxy cuticle. Why it is waxy? Because it is a waterproof barrier that stops the leaf from drying out through evaporation. But because it is clear, it does not block any of that precious sunlight. I'm talking about this cuticle. Okay, this is clear, this is waxy. Due to its waxy nature, it stops leaf to evaporate quickly, and due to its transparent, it does not block any sunlight. Now let's look at the doors of the leaf. Which are doors of the leaf? Those are stomata. You can see it here. This is the stomata. These are tiny controlled openings found mostly on the underside of broad leaves. Okay, you can see it here. Their job, the job of these stomata is simple, but this is very vital. They let carbon dioxide in and allow oxygen and water vapor to exit. But these doors do not stay open all the time. Each stomata is flanked by a pair of guard cells. You can see those guard cells here. Okay, it has also been mentioned here. These two are guard cells. These are shaped like little sausages, and unlike other skin cells, they actually contain chloroplast. So by changing their shape, likely swelling up or shrinking, these stomata control whether the pore is open or closed. Okay, due to this guard cells, these are the doors. Okay, so these help the plant to save water when they need. Inside the leaf, we also have the transport system known as vascular bundles. You can see these here. Vascular bundles, xylem and phloem. You can think of these as the plant's plumbing. First, we have the xylem. Here is the xylem. Okay, these are tough, dead tubes strengthened with a material called lignin. And the function of the xylem is to carry water and minerals up from the roots. Remember it. Xylem carry water and minerals from the roots to the other parts of the plant. Then we have the phloem. This is the phloem. Okay, phloem are living sieve tubes which carry the food the leaf has made. So mostly in the this food is mostly in the form of sucrose. So to the these phloem cells, phloem sieve tubes are responsible for bringing food from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. So this movement of food that is called translocation. Here is a pro tip for your exam, which is a very high yielding topic. In your exams, you must always link structure to function. I repeat this word. Always link structure to function. Do not just say leaves have air spaces. Instead, you should say the spongy mesophyll has large air spaces. Okay, spongy mesophyll has large air spaces which allow for the rapid diffusion of carbon dioxide. So always give the why alongside the what. I have explained you in previous lectures that when you are asked to describe and when you are asked to explain, how will you respond to that question? As we have mentioned, we have discussed that photosynthesis happen in the chloroplast. But now let's look inside the chloroplast itself. Chloroplast is not just a green blob. It is a highly organized factory. Inside a chloroplast, you will see stacks. Okay, these are stacks of flat disc-like sacs. Okay, a single sac is called a thylakoid, like this one. A single one is called thylakoid. So when you see a whole stack of these thylakoids together, we call that a granum. Okay, this is a granum, and more than one granum are called grana. So if we are talking about many stacks, those are grana. But the question is why these thylakoids are stacked. Always remember, which I told you early in other lectures, that when they are stacked, when they are folded, then it means they are increasing the surface area. So these thylakoids are also stacked to maximize the surface area. These thylakoid membrane are the solar panels of the cell. These are thylakoid membrane. Okay, these are the solar panel of the cells. They house the chlorophyll pigments, which capture light, and the machinery which is used to make ATP, that is the energy currency. Okay, So my dear students, the space surrounding these stacks is filled with a semi-liquid substance called the stroma. Okay. So if the thylakoids are the solar panels, the stroma is the assembly line. It contains the enzyme needed that is required to take carbon and assemble it into glucose molecules. Finally, let's look at the membrane of the thylakoid. Here the pigments are clustered into groups like groups which are called photosystems. Think of a photosystem as a specialized satellite dish where every single pigment molecule is ready and waiting to capture photons, which are tiny packets of light energy. Okay, it is an incredibly efficient system. We shall also discuss this photon in very little brief. I am giving you a complete explanation, a detailed explanation, a detailed overview of chlorophyll, of chloroplast, and photosynthesis. Okay, do not think that this is very much detailed. I am giving you this detail to give you complete concept of photosynthesis, that how it works. Now, for one of the most interesting stories in the history of science, that how did we actually find out that plants do not eat soil? For a long time, about 300 years ago, people followed ancient Greek philosophy. What was that philosophy? They literally believed that plants sucked up soil through their roots, almost like eating a meal. But a Belgian doctor named Jean Baptista, okay, he decided to put this to the test with a famous experiment which involved a willow tree. Man Helmont took a large pot and filled it with exactly 90.8 kg of dry soil. He then planted a small willow seedling. The weight of that seedling was only 2.3 kg. Okay, and he planted that seedling for 5 years. And for these 5 years, he irrigated that plant with only rainwater. After 5 years, he weighed the soil and the plant again. He came to know, or he found that the tree now weighed a massive, likely 77 kg. But what about the soil? The soil had only lost 2 ounces. That it was previously 90.8 kg, and after 5 years, it was 90.7 kg. So what was his finding? His finding was very revolutionary. He found that the massive increase in the tree's weight, that is from 2.3 kg to this 77 kg, it did not come from the soil. But here is the catch. His conclusion was actually incorrect. He concluded that the entire weight of the tree must have come from the water he added. Okay, firstly, they were thinking that the Greeks were thinking that plants are taking up soil. Okay, but after this experiment, Van Helmont concluded that it was actually the water which was taken up by the plant. Okay, and then it was grown to up to 77 kg of weight. It was incorrect, no doubt. It up to water, but that was not the actually the water which added in that seedling, okay, in that tree. Because why? Because he did not realize that the tree was actually eating the air, specifically the carbon dioxide, to build its body. He had solved half the puzzle, but the rest was still a mystery for whom? For future scientists. The next piece of our puzzle comes from 1771. We all should be thankful to Joseph Priestley. At that time, scientists knew that a burning candle or a breathing animal injured the air. Breathing animal means a rat. So if you put a mouse in a sealed jar, the air would eventually stop spouting life. So on August 17th of 1771, Priestley made an accidental discovery that changed everything. He burned a candle in a sealed jar until the flame went out because the air was injured. But then he did something different. He put a living sprig of mint into the same jar. What happened then? He waited 10 days. So on 27th of August, he tried to light another candle in that same air. To his amazement, it burned. So what was his conclusion? His conclusion was really groundbreaking. His conclusion was living vegetation has the power to restore the air. We understand that the plant was taking in the carbon dioxide produced by the candle and releasing oxygen. This was the first time we realized that plants actually produce the every gas we need to breathe and that fires need to burn. While Priestley discovered that plants restore air, his experiment did not always work for other scientists. It took a Dutch physician to solve the mystery. He realized there were two missing variables which Priestley had not fully accounted for. Through systematic testing, the scientist made two critical discoveries. First of all, his discovery was light is essential. He found that plants only produce oxygen when they are in the sunlight. In the dark, they actually do the opposite. They use up oxygen just like we do. Secondly is about location. He discovered that location really matters. So only the green parts of the plant like the leaves can restore the air, while roots and flowers do not perform this function. So the scientist who was who was a Dutch physician, he then proposed a brilliant hypothesis. He suggested that green leaves use sunlight to split carbon dioxide and the plant keeps the carbon to build carbohydrates which are like glucose and releases the oxygen as a waste gas. This model was remarkably accurate and found the basis of photosynthesis, what we study today. Now let's look at this from an exam viewpoint. You might be shown these historical setups in this diagram. Okay, I'm talking about this diagram. To get full marks, use your keywords and identify the independent variables which were in Priestley case. Uh, for example, in Priestley experiment, the independent variables were mint sprig, while in this Dutch physician experiment, the independent variables were the presence of light. And watch out for the classic trap. If an exam question asks what happens to a plant in a sealed jar at night, remember that photosynthesis stops because that is night. Okay, there is no sunlight. But photosynthesis stops, but respiration continues. And if it continues, the plant will actually be taking in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. To understand how plants make food, we have to understand the energy which they use, that is the light. We measure light in tiny packets of energy which we call photons. Now here is a key rule of physics. The energy in photon is inversely proportional to its wavelength. That sounds very complicated, but it is really understandable if you just focus on it. Okay, what does that mean? It means short wavelengths have high energy. Short wavelengths have high energy and long wavelengths have low energy. Think of a tight, fast-moving spring versus a long, lazy wave. So sunlight is actually a mixture of many different energy levels. On one extreme, here we have gamma rays. Okay, the shortest wavelength, gamma rays. Shorter wavelength means high energy. Okay, that is the reason that gamma rays have high energy. Okay, but this is the extreme. But these have the shortest wavelengths, that is likely less than even 1 nanometer. And if this is shorter wavelength, it has high energy. On the other extreme, we have radio waves, which can be thousands of meters long and have the lowest energy. So our eyes can only see a tiny slice of this, okay? A very tiny slice of this ranging from 400 nanometer to 740 nanometer, which we call visible light. Within this rainbow, okay, we have violet light that has the shortest wavelength, okay, that is 400 nanometer. okay, and the most which have most energetic photons. But on the other end is red light, okay, which have the longest wavelength and the least energetic photons. So my dear students, plants have evolved to capture specific parts of this visible spectrum to power their food factories. Understanding this photons energy, it helps us realize why leaves are green. They are reflecting the light which they do not use. As we have talked about light as energy, but how does a plant actually catch it? It uses pigments. A pigment is simply a molecule that is very good at absorbing visible light. We have talked about this pigment, okay, that is chlorophyll. But here we shall not discuss only chlorophyll, okay, we shall also discuss another pigment that is carotenoid. No doubt, the proportion of this carotenoid is very little and the major proportion is of chlorophyll. But I think we should understand that how chlorophyll and carotenoids they act. If you look at the graph, which is top right of this slide, this is the absorption spectrum. Notice the big peaks, okay. These are the big peaks, okay. These big peaks, this is of chlorophyll A and B. They are preferential eaters, okay. They are big eaters of the light, okay, and they love this portion of the light. They soak that energy up very greedily. But look at the middle of the graph, that is between 500 to 600 nanometer. This is the portion, okay. This is the portion. There is a massive gap where neither pigment absorbs much light energy, okay. No pigment is absorbing light energy. This is the green part of the spectrum, visible spectrum. And because the plant does not absorb green light, it reflects it back to our eyes. That is exactly why leaves look green to us. Now, you should understand that not all pigments are equal. Either it is carotenoid or either it is chlorophyll A or either it is chlorophyll B. They both act differently. They both absorb different wavelengths of light. But here you should understand that chlorophyll A is the star of the show. It is the main pigment and the only one that can directly convert light energy into chemical energy. And the chlorophyll B, that acts more like a helper. Its absorption is shifted slightly from chlorophyll A to other part of the spectrum to maximize, to widen the range of absorption. Then we also have these carotenoids, okay. These absorb blue and green light to some extent, okay, but major part is of blue, and they reflect the beautiful oranges and yellow which we see in the autumn when the chlorophyll finally breaks down. That is the reason that in autumn season we see leaves, we see different colors of the leaves, because the chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, those are not available at that time, and that is the reason we are able to see different colors of the plants. With this, we are concluding our today lecture. Okay, we shall continue this chapter in the next video lecture with the limiting factors of photosynthesis. Okay, in next lecture we shall cover limiting factors of photosynthesis, that which are the factors like temperature, like carbon dioxide and light intensity, that how those factors affect photosynthetic process. So if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, then subscribe it. Do not forget to click on the bell icon to receive daily updates on this channel, and also do not forget to share these lectures and this channel with your class fellows. So my dear students, see you tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.